All right. Shalom, shalom. I'd like to start off by saying Barak Atah Yahweh, Barak Atah Yahweh Shai, Kol Haloyim La Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Bachakodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect that scattered abroad, the Akim and the Akwaf that's listening in. How will Ratazah, Lord willing, that the lesson is edifying. It's the brother Shawab Amawan back at you with another lesson. And it's going to be a quick hit. All right, Lord willing, is edifying, straight to the point. All right, and going into the title, all right, more terroristic false flags. All right, and I got an article that I'm gonna read real quick. All right, and grab a couple of precepts and then close out. All right, this is from Newsbreak, CBS News. Okay, gotta open it up. Give me a second. And basically, another terroristic synagogue attack that happened 8 hours ago. This was dropped. All right. Basically, this was on March 12th. All right. And it says Michigan synagogue, all right, attack was act of terrorism inspired by Hezbollah. All right, officials say. All right, so we've been telling you that they're gonna have all these different types of false flags being thrown up, that they were gonna try to blame them on Iran. All right, especially that they're in the middle of war with Iran. So pretty much it gives the United States leverage to do whatever they want here in America and brainwash the people with it. All right, so they can make all types of false flags. They can do all types of inside jobs done by your government and basically blame them on Iran. And, people going to believe it. Why? Because these people don't have a clue of what's really going on out there in the war of Iran. Okay. Now, do we have sleeper cells here that are from Iran and all that? Absolutely. We got hella sleeper cells out here. But not everything that you hear about, all right, is concerning a sleeper cell, okay? Because sleeper cells are going to do some heavy, they're going to bring some heavy judgment, all right, at the end of the day. All right, but when you realize these things, right, it'll be a shooting, a mass shooting. The person always dies. You never hear about, about the true background on the whole entire scene. You see, you never see blood in these scenes, okay? See a whole bunch of crisis actors. Remember, America's just one great big movie, as you want to say, all right, is one big place of entertainment. Okay, so we have a lot of crisis actors, a lot of agent provocateurs. Okay, and like I said, anything can be done in America at this point in time, all right, by your government, all right, inside jobs, and they could just sit there and blame it on Iran all day and say that it's these terrorists, and then somehow we already know that they're going to tie these things back into you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. All right. Tying them back truly to the men of the Lord. Okay. Because there's a great persecution that's coming amongst our people. So, Esau is the accuser of thy brethren. All right. He can't wait to find a way to basically blame it on you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay. So again, all right, it says Michigan synagogue attack was act of terrorism inspired by Hezbollah. All right, officials say. Okay, it says federal officials on Monday for the first time labeled the March 12th attack. All right, and that was what, 15 days ago, a little over 15 days ago, 16 days ago, 2 weeks ago. All right, it says attack at a Michigan synagogue as the act of terrorism inspired by Hezbollah, the Iran-backed militant group designated by the U.S. as a foreign terrorist organization since 1997. It says Ayman Ghazali, a naturalized U.S. citizen from Lebanon, rammed an explosive laden truck into the Temple, Israel, in West Bloomfield near Detroit. According to investigators, Ghazali was also armed with a rifle and killed himself after exchanging gunfire with the synagogue's security guards. You see, and that's the funny part, that he offed himself against some is against some security guards. Like the last time I checked, all right, security guards are armed with pepper spray, you know, a little bit of mace, maybe a little baton. All right, not all security guards, all right, are armed with actual, you know, pistols, man. All right, only if there's a certain type of job being done where they need security, you know, possibly like a federal government job, something like that. You might see a security guard, all right, with an actual pistol. All right, but like I said, you know, when you see these security guards, you know, they just top flight security of the world, like in the movie Friday, right? Top flight security, Craig. All right, so you ain't gonna see them with any type of heavy artillery. All right, it's gonna be some bullshit. But the fact that this guy offed himself, all right, for having a gunfire with security guards, all right, is the funny part. And I didn't know that, you know, that synagogues, all right, are now having security guards with actual guns. All right. So it says he committed the terrorism crime of providing material support to Hezbollah. Right. It says U.S. Attorney for the District of Eastern Michigan, Jerome Gorgon, told CBS News, explaining that the attack itself was the support for Hezbollah under federal law. Okay. It says Ghazali lived in nearby Dearborn, Michigan, and worked at a local restaurant. He became a naturalized citizen in 2016. His two brothers stayed behind in Lebanon and were members of the Hezbollah's rocket unit, which was first reported by CBS News. According to the sources in southern Lebanon, the brothers and other family members were killed in a March 5th drone attack by the Israel Defense Forces targeting Hezbollah outposts, sources told CBS News. Following the drone attack, the drone strike that killed his relatives, Ghazali had been recording videos of himself and sending them to his family in Lebanon, talking about becoming a martyr. Okay, and video, and that's the spirit, as a matter of fact, because my point of this video, all right, is that the great persecution is coming, because all these things tie back to a persecution, all right, amongst our people. Okay, because we're also being deemed as domestic terrorists, right? We're being deemed as, you know, extremists, all right, radicals, okay, a problem to society, a menace to society, an enemy within, right? And we're going to become martyrs also. You know, some of us are going to become martyrs and become some of us are going to be beheaded, all right, for YAHAWAH'S sake. You see, so the fact that he even talking about martyrs in this, you know, in this article is heavy, right? It says in a video he made before the attack of the Temple Israel, Ghazali said he wanted to kill as many of them as I possibly can. Jennifer Runyon, special agent in charge of the FBI Detroit field office, said during a news conference Monday, she said his online search indicated he wanted to find the largest gathering of Israelis in the state of Michigan. Gorgon noted that Hezbollah drove a massive truck bomb into U.S. Marine barracks in Beirut, Lebanon in 1983, and said this is exactly what this terrorist did a few weeks ago in our backyard. Okay, and the fact that he has to even go that far of a measure, all right, when Iran is already winning the war. Okay, now this happened 2 weeks ago, right? We have already been in this war for about a month now. All right, so it wouldn't make sense for these devils to go out there and try to do these attacks, right, and then go off themselves. Okay, the way Iran is whooping America's ass in the war, all right, if they were to do an inside job, okay, best believe it's going to be a lot of bodies that are taken, okay? And it ain't just going to be no Israelis, all right? It's going to be Americans also, all right? So when you see Iran do an actual inside job, man, there's going to be some shit that go down, all right? It ain't going to be them offing themselves, okay? Yeah, that's their wild nature that they do, all right? But that's what they do more in their country. I don't think they will do that over here, man, all right? They're going to come with intelligence, All right, they're gonna come with them basically repping Iran and making sure that they get back to boast about it, man. You see? So it says the JEWISH Federation of Detroit said in a statement following the news conference, it is deeply troubling to learn that the attack on Temple Israel is now a confirmed act of terrorism that targeted our, Jewish community, including our children. All right, here it goes. Here it is that these devils commit genocide. All right, they commit all types of crazy ass acts throughout their whole entire life. They go to other people's backyards and bomb the shit out of them and take everything that they got, right? Always waging war, all right? And the moment that something happens in their community, they want to play the victim, okay? That's Esau Edom for you. That's how Esau moves, okay? He tries to play the victim. He wants everybody to feel bad for him, okay? Can't say nothing against him because it's anti-Semitic. He got the anti-defamation league involved, and anything that you say or news that you spread or pictures you take of what's going on in their country, you're a criminal. You're ready for jail time. You see, they want to play the victim, but when they're doing all this wickedness and committing genocide behind people's backs, all right, it's okay. You see, they'll have their own people having a dance, doing a dance. You see, celebrating it. Okay, that's the hypocrisy that this devil has, though. It says officials have been calling the attack a targeted attack on the JEW-ish community. Gorgon said the new designation as an act of terrorism is important to accurately describe the event and threat facing the community. It says the Passover holiday begins April 1st. See, and that's that bullshit right there. That they try to take our culture, all right, and try to align themselves with the Lord, all right, on the day that we're supposed to be aligning ourselves. Okay, that's why a lot of destruction is going to come to that place out there in our homeland, man. All right, as you seen in the news not too long ago, you had Tel Aviv was actually surrounded with many crows, a lot of crows in the sky, a lot of black birds in the sky surrounding them. Why? Because that's an omen to that country right now, man. That country is about to catch hella judgment. Okay. And after they catch judgment, all right, America's going to catch the worst judgment out of them all, because this is Babylon the Great. So that omen that you see out there with all these crows flying around out there, all right, which they are what? Harbingers of death. Okay. That's a sign onto the Lord showing you that much death is going to be brought to that place. Okay. Whether these people like it or not, whether they don't like what we're saying, all right, we're going to continue to tell you the judgment that's coming upon you. Right. So it says, and police around the county are already planning an increased physical presence of police at synagogues. So that can only mean one thing. When this Passover drops, that there's probably going to be a lot of false flags, even more around synagogues during the time of the Passover. And the Lord about to turn it up over after this Passover. So there's going to probably be a lot going on around that time. You're going to start seeing a lot more security, national guards in these areas. Because remember, all right, America is pretty much, Israel's little bitch right now. So they're going to do whatever they tell them to do. And they're going to ask for much, security, all right, to feel secure in those days, right, in these times, right? It says increased physical presence of police at the synagogues. The JEW-ish community centers and other sites to act as a deterrent to potential targeted attacks and acts of terrorism. So, we got to stay away from places like that. Make sure you're not walking around areas where they have synagogues. Not that we're worried, but you never know. As the scriptures say, be circumspect, redeeming the times that the days are evil. So you don't want to be caught around those type of areas, man. If something happens and then they're going to point the finger at you. Okay. It says officials said Ghazali had waited in the parking lot and recorded videos of himself detailing his upcoming operation, specifically intended to kill the JEWS and burn their world. It says Ghazali's phone was recovered at the scene of the attack. Investigators told CBS News, who credited the synagogue sprinkler system for migrating a larger fire. The building was significantly damaged by fire. It says on the cell phone recovered at the scene, investigators found an extensive search and browsing history dating back to January that included what Gorgon described as pro-Hezbollah news, shootout videos, live coverage of Naim Qassem, and news coverage of an Iranian fatwa for jihad against the U.S. military. Naim Qassem has been serving as Hezbollah's Secretary General since 2024. It says the fourth person to hold the position. He participated in the founding of Hezbollah in 1982 and previously served as the first Deputy Secretary General from 1991 to 2024. It says Temple Israel is Michigan's largest synagogue and one of the largest synagogues in the country. It is also home to an early childhood center where classes were in session at the time of the attack. None of the children, teachers, or staff were injured during the attack. See, all this nonsense, right? But nobody was injured. That's how you know it'll be them false flags, man. Here it is, they're just trying to stir things up, throw these false flags up for when the big black swan event happens, right? Because there could be many different black swan events. Okay, they're trying to basically start an upheaval, situation basically that is sudden and violent. Okay, this is where they're going to turn to of blaming, Iran basically, and somehow tying it back to you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. All right, because you got the majority of our people, all right, especially Judah here in America, a lot of them are straight Muslims, man. So they're going to tie you back to all that bullshit. Right? So it says, what was that? It says none were injured in the attack, right? It says a security guard was hospitalized after being struck by Ghazali's vehicle, and multiple first responders were treated for smoke inhalation. I believe that's how you say that, right? At a local hospital, all right? And that's pretty much what it is. That's the whole entire the article, okay? So, they deemed it as a terrorist attack as they, would normally do. Okay. And, now we have to be more circumspect than anything. Okay. Because anything can happen at any given time. All right. America's on edge. America's on, on a high alert. All right. With all these Iranians, all right, here in this country. Okay. And like I said, for us so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, all right, we have to be, also careful around our surroundings, all right, around our environment, all right. Make sure that you're not in the wrong place at the wrong time. This is why you got to keep yourself indoors, man, and constantly, meditate with YAHAWAH'S and do the righteous things, man, to keep ourselves away, all right, from the world and what's going on. All right. As the scriptures say, be ye separate, right? To be separate is to be holy. To be holy is to be away from the things of the world. All right. So we have to stay, amongst our houses, stay locked in. All right. And again, all this leads back to, a great persecution that's coming upon our people. All right. Because we are also called terrorists according to these devils, all because we're reading the scriptures, man. All because we're bringing information out on Israel, bringing information out on America, okay? And anybody that does, you're considered a threat to society, okay? So I'll grab a couple scriptures and I'll close it out, all right? This is Revelations 2:10, all right? And it reads, fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that you may be tried, and you shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful until death, and I will give thee a crown of life. Okay, so that's something that we might be put to the test on, man. Some of us might be casted into prison. Okay, some of us might be accused all right, by the accuser of thy brethren, which is Esau. He might find a way to try to accuse us, all right, and put us into prison, okay? Could be just from you saying something in a video, mentioning something in the video, all right? Find you out there preaching the Bible somewhere around the corner, you know, even though the angels encamp round about those that fear the Lord, you know, remember the Lord is going to try our faith. So you don't know how the Lord's going to come at us when it comes to trying our faith, man. Okay, it can happen in any type of way. All right, so, you know, the time will come where some of us will be casted into prison, FEMA camps, you know, some of us going to become martyrs. We're going to be beheaded for this truth, for not taking on the image or bound down to the beast system, all right, as a testimony to Yahawashi. Okay, so let's grab this. This is Luke. So, okay, this is Luke 21 and 12. It says, but before all these, they shall lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and into prisons, being brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake. And it shall turn to you as a testimony. Settle it, therefore, in your hearts, not to meditate before what you shall answer. For I will give you a mouth and wisdom, which all your adversaries shall not be able to gainsay nor resist. You see? So, you know, we're going to be brought before kings and rulers, man, for Yahawah's sake. Okay? And we're not going to have to worry because the Lord's going to put the spirit on us what to say in that time. You see? It's going to be the mouth of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahawashi. It's going to be Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahawashi speaking through us, using us as a vessel, all right, to be able to, you know, basically say something that our adversaries are not going to be able to gainsay nor resist, all right, when they hear the wisdom of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahawashi coming out of our mouths, right? And most likely it's going to be us preaching their judgment right in front of them, all right? That reminds me of, you know, the mother and her 7 children, all right? Each and one of them, all right, the mouth of the Lord spoke through them, right, in those last days, all right, before they were all pretty much unalive, even the littlest one. All them children had something, you know, something bravo to say to the king, you know. They had something heavy to say according to judgment, you see. And that's how it's going to be in that time, right? So, you know, we're going to also be, as the scriptures say in the next verse, you know, you shall be betrayed by both parents and friends, family. You know, your own children, your own wife might turn against you. You know, you never know. So we have to be ready for these things and expect these things. And the scriptures say, marvel not when these things happen towards you, right? Especially if your wife turns against you, marvel not, okay? Because the Lord has a plan for all of us, right? He has a certain way to test us out for our faith, all right? And we got to continue to strive for the truth until death. Okay, even if it means death, right? And I'm gonna grab this and I'll end it with this. This is Matthew 5 and 10. It says, blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Behold, Salakia, rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. You see? So, you know, that's how you're going to know that, you know, the spirit of the prophets is subject onto the prophets. Okay? That's when you're going to know that a true prophet was among you. All right? They persecuted prophets in the ancient time. All right? And they're going to persecute prophets in this time. Okay? The servant is no greater than his master. All right, so if they have persecuted Yahawashi, they're also going to persecute us, as the scriptures say, right? If they have persecuted me, they shall also persecute you. You see? So we have to just be on, you know, on point, on our P's and Q's, constantly watching, all right, and stay prayed up that Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahawashi protect us in those days and those moments, all right? And like I said, this was going to be something quick, all right? Just, I should have just put terroristic false flags again, all right, because I brought out a video on this before, all right, but before they weren't deeming it as a domestic terrorist yet. I mean, there wasn't They wasn't deeming it as a terroristic threat. But now, according to them, it was based on terrorism. Okay. And that's just going to keep on happening, man. We're going to have more of those. That ain't the only one. All right. There are many more to come. Best believe that. All right. So stay, you know, stay locked and loaded. Stay watching. Be circumspect. Redeeming the time because the days are evil. So I'm going to leave it at that through the spirit. Lord willing, you were edified. Barakatah Yahawah. Barakatah Yahweh Shai. Call Haloim La Yahawah. Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Bahashem. Barak Kodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who grew well. Blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect that scattered abroad, the Akim and the Akwat that was listening in. Yahweh Rattah's our Lord willing that the lesson was edifying. To the next one, Shalom. Keep fighting the good fight of faith and doing as good soldiers of Yahweh Shai. Shalom.